The President of the United States is not the most powerful man or woman in the free world, whatever that means. That's not the job description. Where do we find the job description? It's very simple. It's in the Constitution, Article 2. And I scanned it recently to point out the duties and powers of the President, and they're very, very few. Okay? Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, you know, the militia of the several states when called into actual service of the U.S. The militia really doesn't exist anymore since 1903. We need to restore that, but that's a topic for another time. We have something called, you know, the National Guard, but that's not the militia. You notice it doesn't say that the military is his personal plaything. Notice it say that he declares war. That's something that Congress does and hasn't done since 1941. It's relegated that to a world body called the UN. So Obama or any other president can say, I'm simply obeying NATO or UN mandates. But Congress has that power. And our founders, when they ironed out that Constitution, that was an awesome power to give anybody or any entity. You know, power to make war. Kings could make war to win. So it's invested in the hands of Congress. Okay? Power to grant pardon and reprieves, except in cases of impeachment. And I'll talk a little bit. You remember the people that Bill Clinton pardoned, a lot of unrepentant terrorists? Yeah, some of those folks are now working for Obama. Surprise, surprise. Of course, including Hillary, right? Power to make treaties with 2/3 of the Senate approving. And that should be 2/3 of the senators when there's a quorum, 51. Well, they passed treaties, by the way, with 7 or 8 senators in hand. That treaty should be null and void. But you know what? They're not even making treaties anymore. They call them agreements, like NAFTA, right? North American Free Trade, or WTO. They're afraid they couldn't even get 2/3 of the Senate, so they call them agreements. But they have the power of treaties. So treaty, that's very powerful. But he still needs that approval of the Senate. He appoints ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the U.S. with advice and consent of the Senate, which means majority, 51%, right? The Senate is there. Power to fill vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate, which expire at the end of their next session. I know some presidents have violated that because they didn't step down when the Congress got back into session. Now look at Article 2, Section 3. He has the duty to give a State of the Union address. That doesn't say it has to be every January. It's something like that's been a tradition now of January. By the way, does anyone listen to those State of the Union addresses? I really have trouble. He has the power to convene both houses on extraordinary occasions, or either of them, which I don't know has been done in a long time. Maybe George Bush the Younger did that during the Gulf War early on. I'm not sure. It's been a while. Receive ambassadors and other public ministers, and of course, take care that the laws of the U.S. are faithfully executed. Laws of immigration. He's too busy running guns to Mexican drug lords, right? And commission all of the officers of the U.S. That would be, of course, military as well. Now, you remember when this, by the way, was the front cover of the Time magazine. I didn't shot a photo of that, right? Yeah, the New Deal. Well, we know the first New Deal was pretty rotten, wasn't it? An enormous power grab, which, by the way, there are even some conservative Republicans that refer to Franklin Roosevelt as the best president we ever had. What? What happened to your Constitution? Okay, we saw this Obama Messiah. Obama has this messianic complex. I don't know why, but this is something that was promoted during the campaign. I remember I met this nice young Hispanic lady in Boston Common during the campaign, and she came up and asked me if I would sign the nomination papers. She was very, just all excited about Obama. And I asked her, what about Obama? What do you like about him? He only served a very short term in the U.S. Senate. By the way, he was to the left of Ted Kennedy, especially when it came to the abortion issue. Yeah, right after the baby's born, it's okay to knock him off too, by the way. Interesting that a lot of people don't know the racist roots of the abortion movement. Now that's another topic where I won't get into too much today, but so anyway, she said, I like him. I like his policies. Well, like what? And she says, well, like on global warming. I said, well, what has he done? And she couldn't think of anything. Thankfully, he hasn't done anything on the subject, right? So she really didn't know anything, but she was just enamored by him. I said, he's a nice-looking guy and he's tall. I said, oh, no, that's not why I like him. Yeah, that's probably why for some reason, he's just someone they have to support. Now, this is David Broder, one of the commentators at Washington Post, which is what we call an establishment publication. The first 100 days of a bravura performance. What he has shown is an important accomplishment in itself. It's a mastery of the art of managing the presidency. The guy hadn't done anything, but he's already a master. It was Chris Matthews. Remember the unbiased media? He gets a warm tingle up his leg. I get a cold shiver down my spine when I hear that man. Never mind a warm tingle. I'm like, goodness sake. It's really nauseating. And to be able to get away with that.
Who's that?
Obama's start has been the most impressive of any president since FDR. Joe Klein, isn't that great, right? Well, the Russians love him. Russians always praise Obama's first steps as U.S. president. Of course, he got that treaty through that gave them more superior. Here's all the various slick weekly publications, monthly, bi-weekly, right here. Ebony, Essence, Time Magazine. We had one of our early council members with a southern drawl, so Time Magazine. He said, I wouldn't believe the page number. Newsweek, or we call it Newspeak, right? Here's Obama. People Magazine, great, The First Family, More Time Magazine, Men's Vogue, Rolling Stone, and Ms. Magazine. Oh, the feminists love them too, right? Yeah, this is what a feminist looks like, right? Here we go, Washingtonian, 26 Reasons to Love. Well, that's Washington, D.C. 26 Reasons why I should move on to Washington, D.C. And I'm going to show a clip a little bit later on, but you see a lot of Hollywood celebrities had this nauseating adulation of Obama, that you basically exist to serve Obama, you see. And I'll show that a little bit later. And they use classrooms, schoolrooms, little children praising in classroom formats, which really is unconstitutional, right? What the Bible say about causing a little one to sin? So, Obama Messiah declares a new era of responsibility. Well, let me give a little background of his history. And most of us probably know this, but he was born in Hawaii, and I put a question mark there because there are some people who don't think he was born in Hawaii, in fact, the United States. I'm not going to get into that much. I did meet with Jerome Corsi. He was at a function that I attended, and he's convinced that he's not, and actually been to Kenya, but that's not the topic of this presentation. Let's hope he was a U.S.-born citizen anyway. His mother was Stanley Ann, by the way, because the mother wanted a boy. So kind of hard to go through life with Stanley Ann, but she did. And Barack Sr. Barack Sr. was a Kenyan national. He was somewhat from an upper middle class background. He wasn't some poor tribes and what have you. Actually had connections to the Mau Mau government, which is a very radical militant government. The father lived in Hawaii, went on to Harvard, and they got divorced. He divorced his mother, so basically abandoned by father. He only saw him once after that. I think he was about 15 or so, and then he died in a alcohol-related car crash in the early 80s, I think. The mother married an Indonesian national, Lolo Sotoro, moved to Indonesia when he was about 4, lived there for about 6 years, somewhat formative years, I would think, in the country. He moved back to Hawaii to live with the grandparents. He went to a very prestigious prep school. You know, I met Mr. Reverend Manning. You know Reverend Manning, the one who coined the term long-legged Mac Daddy. Yep. And he's a little over the top when it comes to Obama's criticism. But he said Obama has no black experience, U.S. black experience, because he had nothing but an Ivy League pedigree. Okay. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, but don't sell yourself as some poor kid from the South Side that made good. Our sitting governor was a poor kid from the South Side that made good. And I'm not supporting him, but at least he can has those credentials. Chicago community organizer, I'm going to get into that a little bit later. That's very important, because when you say community organizer, it's synonymous with socialist or Marxist, okay? He was elected to the state senate in 1995, and he had a very interesting political start, where he raised his funds. I'll get into that in a few minutes, right? 2004 Democratic Convention right here in Boston. He was considered, not that well known, but he was the one that gave the keynote address. I remember when it happened, people saying, oh, we saw the future, the wave of the future. Well, how did this guy get this? These people just don't come out from nowhere, right? But here he is. U.S. Senate in 2005 and U.S. President just a few years later. That's an awfully quick rise, right?